अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्रूपस्वामिति नामिने। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिति नामिने। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमां वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं परमानन्दं माधवम्। So last week we had completed 5th canto, 4th chapter, in which we had discussed the qualities of Lord Rishabdev, his appearance as a result of the austerities and the benedictions given through the mercy of the Brahmanas, that the Lord himself will incarnate as the son of Navi and Meru Devi. And then we see Nabhi's fatherly affection. We see how Nabhi eventually attains perfection after crowning Rishabdev as the king, the emperor. And then we also see Rishabdev's exemplary character, his marriage, and the 100 sons that are born. So Rishabdev marries Jayanti, and they have 100 sons, and the oldest of which is Bharat. And then we'll see a little bit more about the sons later on. So that was essentially the 4th chapter. So we'll continue now with we'll start with the 5th chapter, which is titled Lord Rishabdev's Teachings to His Sons. So the chapter has 35 verses, and the first half is mostly the teachings of Lord. Actually, the entire chapter is mostly the teachings of Lord Rishabdev. And we see that he goes through different grades of realizations when imparting this teaching. Not, but he himself is the personality of Godhead, but his teachings are for people with different levels of realization. And the chapter ends with the Vairagya, the renunciation of Lord Rishabdev. Okay, so we'll start with 5.5.1. And Saran Prabhu, can you do the translations?
Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you. Rishabhvacha nayam deho deha bhajam naloke kastan kam marate vidbhujamye tapo divyam putrakayena sattvam Shuddhyedhyasmad brahmasaukyam tvanantam.
Lord Rishabhadev told his son, "My dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night, simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penance and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal, blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continue forever."
So the first 3 verses talk about the importance of human life. Right? So we see Rishabdev here, he addresses his sons as Putra Kaha. And Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the suffix Ka denotes his extreme compassion for his sons. Putra means, of course, sons. So when he's saying Putraka, it indicates that out of his compassion, he's giving them instructions for their ultimate benefit and for our ultimate benefit. So here what we see is that Lord Rishabdev is first, so he goes through these grades of advancements. So here he is talking about giving up material enjoyment in favor of austerity, right? So his ultimate goal is to establish Bhakti Yoga. But first he says that one should not practice material enjoyment as the goal of life, right? So material detachment, that's the first step in the rung in the ladder that he's talking about. So why? Because these desires for material enjoyment, they give trouble, right? So what kind of desires? Desires such as seeing or touching a woman. So Lord Rishabdev says that these desires are also available in the lower forms of life, such as that of a hog or a pig. So he uses the word dehabhak. So dehabhak is anyone who has accepted a material body. So they're there to anybody who has accepted a material body. These desires for sense gratification, especially for sexual enjoyment, anybody, be it be a human being or a pig or a lower form. But then he says that having attained the human form of life, one should strive for that which is not available in the lower form of life. Right? So now he's making this distinction. And what is something that is a distinguishing characteristic of human life? Austerity. Now, one may say that human forms are not the only forms that practice austerity. Trees also practice austerity. They stand naked in extreme heat and cold, whether it is dry or wet. They stand and tolerate. That's austerity. So Rishabdev, to make the distinction, he says tapo divyam, or divine austerities or austerities for the purpose of attaining the divine. So the animals and the plants, yes, they may be performing austerities, but they are not performing it for a high purpose. They're performing it because they're forced to do so, or because they do not know better. But having attained the human form of life, one should practice tapodivyam. Now, this automatically excludes all other kinds of austerities that may be practiced in the human form of life. For material advancement, for mystic powers, it excludes all that. Tapodivyam means austerities for attaining the divine. And in order to make sure that there is no misunderstanding, he said the result of this tapodivyam is Shuddham Sudhiyet. So Shuddham Sudhiyet means that one then becomes situated in pure goodness. The Antakarana becomes purified. Those kinds of austerities, not the kind of austerities that make one proud, that increase the contamination of the modes, but Shuddham Sudhiyet. Right? So Vishnu Chakravarti says Shuddham Sudhiyet means that Antakarana. Antakarana means the subtle aspect of one's existence that becomes purified. Srila Prabhupada writes that human beings should voluntarily accept suffering. in the form of austerity. So making the distinction between plants and animals, that they involuntarily have to accept austerities, but human beings should voluntarily accept austerities. And why? In order to attain the divine life. So he says that every living entity is trying to enjoy happiness. But as long as one is engaged in the material body, he has to suffer different kinds of misery. A higher sense is present in the human form. We should act according to superior advice in order to attain eternal happiness and go back to Godhead. Right? And then Srila Prabhupada gives the example that people, in order to earn their livelihood, they leave home early in the morning, they catch a train that is completely packed, and they have to stand in the train for 1 or 2 hours, then take a bus to the office, then work hard in the office from 9 to 5, and then return home. And then after eating, he has sex and goes to sleep. So those are not the kind of austerities that come as tapo divya. Prabhupada says for those kinds of austerities, what you get is yan maithudadi gramedi sukham hi tucham. He says essentially what you get is maithunadi. So maithun is sexual pleasure, gramedi, that you become bound to the materialistic aspect of the family life. Verse 2. Mahat sevam dvaramahur vimuktes tamo dvaram yoshitam sang sangam mahantaste samachitaha prashanta vimanyavaha suhurda sadhavoye.
One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord existence or want to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas.
So in the previous verse, Rishabdev has spoken how by properly utilizing the human form of life, one can be liberated. And how by the improper use of the human form of life, one may fall down. Here he expands on these two dual aspects, right? So he says, Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Muktes. That for those who properly use the human form of life, for them the deliverance is by the service to the Mahatmas. So the point is making is that those austerities, they are not an end in themselves. When one performs austerities in the proper mood, then the benediction that one receives is service to the Mahatmas. And service to the Mahatmas automatically result in vimuktas. It automatically results in complete deliverance. Now, what about the other types? For the other type, Rishabdev says, Tamodvaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. So Yoshitam Sangi Sangam is those who are associating with those who are associating with women. Right? So Yoshitam Sangi are those who associate with women, and Yoshita Sangi Sangam are those who associate with those who are womanizers. For them, Tamodvaram, there the door to the hellish conditions of life are open. So in doing this, Rishabdev is also talking about the strong influence of lust. So in the previous verse, he talked about how lust is available in all forms of life and is the cause of downfall. Here it is saying that it is so powerful that even if you are not engaging in lust, simply by engaging with the person who is lusty will open the door to hellish conditions. Why? Because by the force of the association, one will eventually also acquire that trait. So Rishabdev talks about both. He talks about the Yoshitam Sangi and he talks about the Mahatmas also. The Mahatmas are those who deliver those who. So then he talks about the characteristics of the Mahatmas. That the Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and fully engaged in devotional service. So by serving people who have these characteristics, deliverance is assured. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, he says that looking at these three characteristics, one can understand that Rishabdev at this point is speaking about two kinds of Mahatmas. So one is the impersonalists, or not the Mayavadis, but the impersonalists, the Brahmavadis, the worshippers of Brahman. They are Samachitta, right? They see no difference between one and another, and they are Prashanta. They are peaceful. Then there is also the devotee who is Samachitta, because he has a sincere heart. And he's Prashanta, peaceful, because his intelligence is fixed in the Lord. The symptoms are the same, the cause is different. And both of them are Vimanyava. Both of them are devoid of anger, and Suhurda, friendly to all, and Sadhava, that they do not see fault in others. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that the Brahma Saukyam. So the Brahma Saukyam was mentioned in the previous verse, that this is what one in the human form of life should aspire for. So just like based on these characteristics, Samachitta, Prashanta, Vimanyava, and Sadhava, there are the Brahmavadis and they are the Bhaktas. Similarly, there are two kinds of Brahma Saukyam. The spiritual happiness that is shown in the previous verse. One is Brahma Saukyam in Brahmavad, and the second is Brahma Saukyam in Vishnu Bhakti, the impersonal and the personal. So the prefix V in Vimukta indicates that there are two kinds of liberation. For the impersonalist, Mukti is merging and becoming in the Brahman. And for the devotee, Mukti is becoming an associate of the Lord. And these two destinations are achieved by either serving an impersonalist Mahatma or a devotee Mahatma. Right? So here he is purposefully including both Brahmavadis as well as Bhaktas, because they share the same characteristics at this point of time, even though the cause may be different. But the destination is different. So among the two Mahatmas, now Rishabdev will make the point that the Bhaktas are actually superior, and that the qualities are given in the next verse. So Srila Prabhupada says that the human body is like a junction. One may either take a path of liberation or hellish conditions. Right? Then on the path of liberation, there's another junction. One may associate with the impersonalist Mahatmas, or one may associate with the devotees. Right? So in this way, based on one's choice, one reaches different destinations. And Prabhupada makes this important point that although the ultimate goal is different, the process of emancipation is almost the same. And the drive for that process is also the same. So far we have seen three destinations. One of material enjoyment, the second of impersonal liberation, and the third of serving the Lord. So the drive is the same. The engine is the same, which is the desire for eternal happiness. Now Prabhupada says the process is also not much different. In all the three, the process is by willfully performing austerities. The only difference is the consciousness with which one is performed. So he made the point that people go in crowded trains and work and then come back. That's austerity. Right? There is austerity there. It is driven by the desire to enjoy. But the desire to enjoy is maithunya. Is to enjoy maithunya grahimedi, to be a bound householder, enjoying sex whenever possible. Now, the impersonalist will undertake austerities. He will serve a Mahatma who has impersonal conception, and he will reach that destination. The devotee also performs austerities. The devotee will also serve a Mahatma who is a devotee and reaches that particular destination. So the drive is the same. The process is similar. The only thing is that the paths are different. Okay, verse 3. Yeva maishe krita saudartah janeshu dehambara varti keshu griheshu jayatmaja ratimatsu na priti yukta yavadarthascha loke.
Those who are interested in reviving Krishna consciousness and increasing their love of Godhead do not like to do anything that is not related to Krishna. They are not interested in mingling with people who are busy maintaining their bodies, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They are not attached to their home, although they may be householders. Nor are they attached to wife, children, friend, or wealth. At the same time, they are not indifferent to the execution of their duties. Such people are interested in collecting only enough money to keep the body and the soul together.
So this verse talks about the extraordinary qualities of the devotees. Right? So what is the defining quality? Maesha krata saudartha. Maesha krita, so the Lord Rishabdev is the personality of Godhead. So they're eager to develop the love for Lord. That is the goal of life, right? So that is the defining quality of the devotee. What happens because of that motivation? Rishabdev says that disinterested in mingling with people who are materialistic. He says who are busy maintaining their bodies, eating, sleeping, mating, different things. So these are basically people who are absorbed in the material conception. So not only do they do it themselves, but they are not interested in associating with people who do this. Third point is that they're unattached to their houses, wives, children, friends, and wealth. So this is an interesting point. So it does not say that they do not have houses, wives, children, friends, and wealth. They do have it. So they have houses, they have wives, they have children, they have wealth, they have friends, but they are unattached to them. Right? So this is essentially describing ideal household life. Right? And the fourth quality is that they're only interested so they're not interested in excessively endeavoring for wealth. And so he says only collecting enough money to keep body and soul together, or to remain in household life to spend their money on glorifying the Lord. Right. So this is Rupa Goswami's Satyahara Preshasya Prashalpanyamaka, right? You can almost see how Rupa Goswami has taken those instructions from and I'm not sure whether he based it exactly on these verses, but you can see the resonance. The same theme is being presented in a more concise way in the NOI. So what's the essential point that's being made over here? That when a devotee engages in the household life, they are internally detached, and externally they are not indifferent to the execution of their duties. Externally they appear to be fully attached householders. Right? So they are maintaining a house and a family, sufficient wealth to get by. All these are qualities of the household. But internally they are, what is the internal mode? They want to develop love for the Lord. They do not want to associate with worldly minded people. And whatever they have, they are not attached to it. So the point is that a detached householder is on exactly the same platform as a renunciant. Because regardless of what the external paraphernalia is, renunciation is a state of consciousness. Right? This has been proved over and over in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, chapter 5. Over and over, Krishna makes this point. So Prabhupada says, and right now this is, Prabhupada applies it to the two Mahatmas, two categories of Mahatmas. He says that whether the person is an impersonalist or a devotee, if one is actually interested in advancing spiritually, one should not mingle with those who are materially engrossed. And so that's one point. Second is that they should not be attached to homely comforts in the company of wife, children, friends, and so forth. And then finally says that even if one is a grasta and has to earn livelihood, he should be satisfied by collecting only enough money to maintain body and soul together. One should not have more than that, nor less than that. Not less means that the person should not become a parasite under the guise of bhakti. Right? So should have enough to take care of yourself, enough to give in charity, enough to not be dependent on other, but not be excessively ambitious. Okay? So these three verses essentially talked about the importance of the human form of life. Now let's go to verse 4. Nunam pramattha kurute vikarma yadendriya pritya apranoti na sadhu manye yatatmanoya ashannapi klesha dashadeha.
When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engage in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeed, he has already received a body which, although temporary, is a cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a body, material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not benefiting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he had habitually get material bodies one after another.
So you'll see the translations over here are a little long because Srila Prabhupada is also expanding. So Prabhupada kind of commingles translation with purport for our benefit. That's why you'll see the translations here are long. So having described the importance of the human form of life, Rishabdev is now giving specific instructions in 3 verses on how to end the transmigration cycle, how to get liberated, right? So in the previous verses, they had said that people who are attached to women or people who are attached to those who are attached to women will fall down. Now he illustrates this with an example, right? He says that when a person acts for sense pleasure, then he engages in various sinful activities. And he gives an example like enjoying others' wives. And the reason he makes this point is because the nature of lust is that it does not get satisfied that easily. So a person who is engaging in this ashram only for the purpose of sense enjoyment will inevitably be guided, will be forced to commit sinful activities. So if a person wants to enjoy with women, he will not be satisfied with just his wife. Or even if he has more than one wife, he will not be satisfied with just his wives. So then what does he do now? So then he tries to enjoy with other women or others' wives. And then Rishabdev says, because of these sins, he gets a material body. Actually, he said because of the sins he has engaged in previous lives. So he's talking about the cycle of transmigration. So one who is materially attached in previous life has committed this sins of having indiscriminate sex. So he gets a material body, which is the further cause of suffering. So when he gets this material body, because of the impressions of the previous sinful activities, he continues to do the same thing. So in the Nectar of Devotion, this is described much more elaborately as the cycle of karma. Right? So from kuta to beach, from beach to aprarabh, from aprarabh to papam, papam to prarabh, and then again back to kuta beach. So that cycle that is based on avidya, it feeds upon itself. So within the life and across life, it continues over and over again. So when Rishabdev describes that, he laments. He says, I do not consider this to be proper. Why? Because this body actually does not belong to the jiva. So he says, asannapi atmanu. He says this body does not belong to the jiva, which is another way of saying that actually the jiva does not belong to the body. The body is an external encumbrance that has been given to him to cause pain to him. It has been given to him to fulfill his latent, pent-up material desires. So using the body in this manner will continue to perpetuate the cycle of getting further bodies. So Vishnu Chakravarti quotes Brihanarankya saying, Asangohaya ayam purusha. The jiva is not associated with the body. So this is the first step in understanding the transmigration cycle. That one, when commits material activities, now here Rishabhdev is talking about sinful activities, but it's also applicable to pious activities. That when one commits material activities, then one is forced to take on a material body in order to enjoy or suffer the results of those material activities, and also because of the desires that become perpetuated through the performance of that activity. But in reality, the jiva is not the body. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport writes that the four sinful activities are illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. These are the means by which one gets another material body that is full of miseries. In the Vedas, it is said, and Prabhupada quotes again the Brihanarankya, that asangohayam purusha, that the living entity is not connected with the material world, but due to his tendency to enjoy the material sense, he is put in this material condition. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about four don'ts, right? Illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. And it is considered that these are the fountainheads of other sinful activities. It's not that these are the four only sinful activities, right? Because here it is not said that one should not steal from others. Like here it is not said that one should not kill others. So of course, the list of sinful activities is exhaustive. But the understanding is that these four activities are the fountainhead of other sinful activities. If one is able to restrain from these four sinful activities, then one will also be able to restrain from other sinful activities like telling lies or stealing, etc., etc. So in the first canto, 17th chapter of the Bhagavatam, when Parikshit Maharaj gave these four places as residence to Kali, it was because he was aware that his kingdom was pious. Because these activities were not happening, right? Because he knew that if these activities would be happening, the kingdom would be impious. So that's why he gave these four places, understanding that the kingdom was pious, right? So if you look at it differently, we can understand that wherever these four activities are being done, Kali will be flourishing. Okay. We'll do one more verse and then we'll pause for any discussion. Prarabhavastava nabodhajato yavana jigastha atmatattvam yavad kriyasa tavadidam manovai karmatmakam yena sharirabandha.
As long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant action. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karma atmaka, colored with fruitive activity. As long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear. And as long as one is absorbed in fruitive activity, he has to accept a material body.
So this completes the thought being presented in the previous verse. Previous verse, Rishabdeva said, don't do sinful activities. So one might say, okay, I'll do pious activities. Here he's saying, don't do pious activities. Right? So he's saying that whether they are sinful activities or pious activities, as long as they are materially motivated, they will be the cause of bondage because they are performed under the influence of the modes. Right? So all activities, pious or impious, he says are the cause of samsara. So this verse is essentially elevating the person to the platform of Gyan. Right? So he's saying that as long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear, as long as one is absorbed in fruitive activities, he has to accept a material body. In the earlier part of the verse, he says that as long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated. So, flipping it around, Rishabdev is now talking about Gyan. That as long as one inquires about the spiritual value of life, as long as the mind is pure and the consciousness is clear, one will not be absorbed in fruitive activities and one will not have to accept a material body. So he began from one who does not take advantage of the human form of life, which is essentially a person who's performing impious activities. Right? And then he says, he brings one to the platform of not performing impious activities. Now he's bringing one to the platform of not performing material activities. So from karma, he's come to the platform of Gyan. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says that since all acts, pious or impious, are all the cause of samsara, one should engage in Gyan, which destroys both sins and piety. Thus, dependence on karma or bondage of jiva is produced from ignorance. This remains as long as one does not inquire about the self or Atma. And then he quotes Bhagavad Gita 4:37, where Krishna says, Bhasmasat kurute Arjuna jnanagnehi sarva karma. O Arjun, the fire of knowledge burns all karmas to ashes. So Prabhupada comments that when people think that they act very piously to be relieved from misery, but it's not a fact. Because if one engages in pious activities, then he still is going to be bound by the clutches of Maya. So, Rishabdev here actually is talking about Atmagyan, right? And the knowledge of the self, which frees one from the clutches of karma. Srila Prabhupada, as usual, he takes this opportunity to extend Atmagyan to spiritual knowledge, to knowledge of Krishna. Right? And we see Prabhupada doing that in the Bhagavad Gita also, because Rishabdev will himself do this later on. Prabhupada is giving us a sneak preview. So, simply developing Atmagyan will result in impersonal liberation. But one develops knowledge about the science of bhakti, then one gets to associate with the with the Lord. And this point will be made by Rishabdev in the next verse. So Prabhupada says that in the Bhagavatam 10-32, it is said that a person who doesn't have knowledge of devotional service may think himself liberated, but actually he is not. Such people may approach the impersonal Brahman effulgence, but they fall down again into material enjoyment because they have no knowledge of devotional service. Right. So now we have these higher goals that are being revealed, and the process to attain them are also being explained. Now, most of it is something that devotees are very, very familiar with. After having read the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Shastri, read the preceding verse in the Bhagavatam, but these knowledge are given over and over again for the sake of emphasis and for helping a realization. That when we hear the same thing from different personalities, Krishna saying in Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving similar instructions in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavatam we see Narad Muni giving the same instructions, Lord Brahma giving the same instructions. So then, as we hear it over and over again, then we also begin to internalize them. Okay, let me pause here and see if there's any comments.
Just a comment, Prabhu. These 5 verses is like a very nice, concise summary, like we're saying, of many teaching. It's back.
Yeah, also in the last class, the 8 instructions for the deliverance, when they were good.
You're right. The instructions of Rishabdev are very concise and philosophically dense there. So the reason that we are able to kind of navigate them relatively easily is because we are familiar with them. We've already been studying them. We heard it from Srila Prabhupada and others. But yes, they're concise also. In one place you can get the whole roadmap, and you continue to draw it all the way to your devotional service.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is in terms of relevancy. Nowadays, people are talking about relevancy to the current day and age, and things like that. Especially the new, not new, I shouldn't say new, but the young generation. It's very difficult for them to digest much of this. So when we say that you should not work too hard just to make yourself in the material enjoyment, so they take that part, but then they leave out the other part where they have to invest their energy in the spiritual side of it. And when we start saying that, then it becomes too irrelevant for them. So how to make this more relevant for the youth, so that they take it? Because in Prabhupada's time, although the youth were rebellious, they were searching. Actually, they were really searching for the spirituality. But now the youths are not. Maybe there are few, but most of them are not searching for spirituality, but they are more interested in living an easy life, comfortable life without much austerities. So how to make it relevant for them so that they would accept these things? Is there any suggestions on this?
Thank you, Prabhu. Good question. And I agree with you with your observation. So to some extent, I think we are also seeing how the relevance is coming, because the primary mode of engagement of youths in the current day and age is through kirtan, right? So they don't consider it as an austerity. It's a lot of enjoyment. They can sing and dance for hours and hours. together, and that gives rise to everything else. By chanting the holy name in the association of devotees, and they develop whatever qualities that are required to be developed, like you're saying, along with material detachment, spiritual attachment should be there. The impetus to perform other kinds of austerities should be there. So through that process, earlier on, it was the method was a little different. Method was at least in the 60s and 70s, the devotees actually they flourished in the austerities. They often talk very nostalgically about how they had only one dhoti, and when it was being washed, then they would basically have to sit in the room waiting for it to dry. And so many stories you hear about how they would go book distributing in a car in winter without any heater in it, and all kinds of austerities. Christmas time, winter, cold, standing 12 hours and outside the storefront. So that was what was inspiring them. And then we saw that there were devotees who were inspired by the pakka, by how the philosophy is complete, how the performance of rituals is supported by strong philosophical sentiments, right? And then that led to them further advancement. Now it's more like enjoyment through kirtan, but it's the holy name, so it has a potency. In the Mayapur, they have this annual GBC, and because so many people come for that annual meetings, they're gradually expanding and putting things that attract people. So the GBC meetings are the GBC meetings, but then they also have Kirtan, a week of Kirtan Mela. They also have a week of, I think they call it Shastra Sangha, where, and what I understand now, they also have a week of Archavikra, deity worship. So they're basically putting more and more things that attract different people. My personal experience is that while it is true that the youth of the current age in ISKCON, they may not be that pakka in chanting or study of the scriptures, but I have also seen, at least this is empirically, these youth grow up into young adults or middle-aged adults, and then they do become that. They do become very, very focused on study of the scriptures, preaching, chanting. And I know of at least one devotee, known him since he was maybe 17, 18 years old. Now he's in his mid-40s. And to start off, he was very, 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 very much into kirtan. Kirtan, could do hours and hours of it, but could not chant. Right? He would openly say, it's very difficult for me to chant. Now he's chanting 16 rounds, initiated. He's teaching his children. Now he's complaining about his children that they are not chanting. I said, Prabhu, you did not chant. Now you're complaining about your children. They did not chant. But the process is purifying, regardless of which, as long as it's a bona fide aspect you take to it, it will ultimately purify.
Another very on the same topic, Prabhu, hopefully I'm not boring other people. Nowadays we also see the boys and the girls want to mingle with each other, which Prabhupada did not encourage that much. So Prabhupada was very he did not say anything in the beginning, but eventually he put that barrier between the two as they came along with him. But nowadays it's I don't know, the youth get quickly discouraged by the way or it is the mindset of the youth. I don't know what it is. So just some guidance on that would also be very helpful. How we can bring that in a way that it does not discourage youth. At the same time, they also get into the right orientation.
Yeah, I think I would again agree with you. My personal take here, and this is just personal, does not represent any position per se. My personal take is like Nag Muni says in the seventh canto, Yena Kena Prakarena, Krishna Mana, that one way or the other, if one gets one mind to Krishna, then one ultimately attains perfection. So I know there are people who join the youth yatra. One person was a teenager only. He was jokingly saying that they're also becoming like young men looking for potential partners, young women looking for potential partners there. But then that is the nature, right? Then how do they, rather than them going to a discotheque and looking for it, they're coming together in bhajan and kirtan and looking for it, right? That's I think that's victory. I mean, who will they get? They will get devotees. And then how are they associating? They're associating and chanting a holy name. And yes, sometimes you see them associating like very closely with one another or etc. But it's like even when Srila Prabhupada, he was maintaining this strict separation. Now, if you look at Shikshamrita, so many cases of improper association, so many marriages ended up being dissolved, right? So nature of where we are, what's going on. My take always has been that if it helps the person advance in Krishna consciousness, does not break a regulative principle, then then it's at least in that context, the ends justify the means. As long as it does not break regulative principles, the end justifies the means.
Yeah, I tend to agree that it's all again a personal, debatable topic. This is. I personally see with my son, it has his, and also a few kids in our congregation. And again, this is all personal and it all based on experiences and what you are seeing. So at least from my lens, it is all. It's all encouraging, actually. That's what I see.
I mean, it is better for them to roam around doing kirtan than to not roam around and not do kirtan. So there was this. I think your son was also there, right? In Potomac, there was this kirtan for capital kirtan, right? And I was really impressed by the energy of the youth. They started doing kirtan in the early afternoon, and people were sitting for a while. They were going and taking a break, but the kirtaners were going steady. And they were really absorbed. They were really like having fun. Now their absorption is different. Their absorption is they give high fives to one another and they give thumbs up signs to one another. But to me, the fact that they're able to sit there for 6 hours and just immerse themselves in the holy name, that's a huge accomplishment. I could not do that. That's something that speaks to the fact that something that we are doing is right.
Hare Krishna, can I ask a question?
Yes, Prabhu, of course.
Okay. Well, maybe a comment also on what Ananda Prabhu was saying. I preach in Suriname, and the congregation is developing, and there's so many young people who naturally come. I think, on the part of ISKCON itself, the leadership has to create different forum, different avenues, to find such positive engagement, like Prabhu was saying, to engage the youths. Our movement is expanding, it's growing from the first generation to the second to the third. And, what I do in Suriname is that I set up something called the Krishna Sena youth group. And it has been very, very successful. Many young people, college students, and like that, and they organize themselves, and they have retreats whenever visiting devotees are coming. They have activities planned out, and surprisingly, we hold Ratha Yatra in the city, and they're engaged, to the extent that they will arrange the whole festival and do so many activities together. So they have activities the whole year planned out. So in this way, they are, just enlivened, and with so many Krishna conscious activities and this positive engagement, and they grow in their let's say their attachment, their attraction, and they don't go off track. So it ties in, with what both of you have been mentioning. It's more like spontaneous. So they're meeting for kirtan like that and like that. But in our temple, we try to arrange it, and arrange different forum, for them, and they like outing, so they'll have campfires, this, that, and the other. So just a little comment and some addition. But I want to ask a question. It's like for the first, well, not for the first time, it's like I didn't see it so clearly that there are two categories of Mahatmas mentioned in the purport. The impersonalists and the bhaktas, both are referred to here as Mahatmas. I always had the understanding that Mahatmas refer to the bhaktas, but now I'm seeing the impersonalists also referred to as Mahatmas. And then in that first verse, Brahma Sokyam Tva Anantam, the Brahma Sokyam refers to spiritual happiness. And I'm thinking again, even in the verse, that Brahma Sokyam is referring to the happiness that the devotee, the bhaktas, and not the impersonalists. I'd like to clarify that, because sometimes these terms confuse me a little. Brahmavadis, Mayavadis, impersonalists. I'm not so clear. If you can just clarify that a little.
Sure. Thank you, Prabhu, and thank you for sharing the wonderful activities that you're doing. So you're right. This is one of the few places where, at least in the beginning, the impersonalists are glorified at the same level as the devotee. Later on, they will make the distinction, but at least at the beginning, they are being glorified as the same level. And he explains why, that both of them are aspiring to get out of the cycle of birth and death. Both of them are aspiring to end the cycle of transmigration. Both of them are consciously using the human form of life for the proper, in the proper way. So that's why they're both considered to be Mahatmas. And Brahma Sakyam also, it's Brahma means both Brahman and it means Krishna. So the Brahma Sakyam also has two meanings. For the impersonalist, Brahma Sakyam means merging in the Brahman. And for the devotee, Brahma Sakyam means serving the Lord. Right. So Srila Prabhupada does not. So when Srila Prabhupada condemns, his condemnation is more strongly not towards the Brahmavadis but the Mayavadis. So the difference between the two is the Brahmavadis are bona fide. They're like it's said in the Bhagavatam, right? Vadanti tattva tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagwaneti shabdyate. So Brahman is a worshipable bona fide aspect of the Lord, right? And they are attracted for whatever reasons to that aspect. So they are Brahmavadis, they're Mahatmas, they're spiritualists. But then there are those who want to become the Lord, like those who are following the teachers of Adi Shankaracharya, the Mayavadis. That what they say is that ultimately we will become God. Brahmavadis don't want to become God. They simply want to enter into the Brahman. Right. So that's where they distinct. And those are the ones that Srila Prabhupada actually he criticizes most severely. You're on mute, Prabhu.
Impersonalists, what is the difference? Mayavadi, Brahmavadi, Mayavadi, and then impersonalists. Are they both impersonalists?
They're both impersonalists. Both the Brahmavadis and the Mayavadis, they're both impersonalists.
Thank you so much.
Just to clarify, one want to become God, merge into God, and one want to merge in Brahma Jyoti. That means they respect God and they want to merge in the Brahma Jyoti. They don't want to become God. That's a difference.
Thank you so much.
No, I'm just trying to confirm, is that the difference?
Yes, Prabhu. I thought you were expanding, but yes, Prabhu, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. These 5 verses have been so dense. I've been going over it again and again. I'm not able to wrap up. What is he trying to say? He's saying so many things. On the one hand, it seems like, text 1, 2, and 3 almost seems like Adho Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangat Bhajana Kriya. It almost seems like, the first verse is about giving up, engaging in penance and austerity, putting some amount of faith in something beyond karmic activities. It almost sounds like that. And then that Mahatsevam Dwaram, that verse, it's associating with spiritual personalities, talks about their qualifications, right? Like they're equipoised and devoid of anger. I found that interesting that, it made its way there in amongst all the other things. I don't know. Is that like I guess it's easier for me when I find patterns in things. I'm not able to find a pattern in this verse. That was one thought. The class down. But the other thing is that there are, it seems like he's also, touching upon, like Sachinandan Maharaj says, the 4 gates, right? Like body, intellect, mind, and soul in his Japa retreat, I've heard. So it seems like he's also catering. He's saying, at the level of body, what should you be doing? Don't be busy maintaining your body and doing all of that. Then at the level of intellect, he's telling us that now that you have this human form of life, understand that there is more to it. I don't know. Am I sounding correct? Am I too off? I don't know.
No, actually, you probably analyzed a lot deeper than I did. I did not actually look at it from the perspective of the 9 stages of bhakti, but it'd be interesting to look at it from that perspective. But the second observation you make is right on, that yes, he is taking us through the yoga ladder, right? So first he talks about giving up vikarma and following karma, right? And then he says from karma, he's saying akarma, right? So, and from akarma on the platform of jnana, right? So he takes us to that stage, but then he does not go through, he does not explicitly go through Astang, but he goes to bhakti, but he will mention Astang. He will mention Astang as something that is inferior to bhakti, right? So he will mention that also. So you're right, in a very few verses, he takes us through the entire yoga ladder, from vikarma to Shuddha bhakti. But as you said, it'd be interesting to map it to the stages of bhakti and see if there's a correlation over there. Okay, thank you. So let's move on to verse 6. Evam manakarma vasham prayunkte avidyatmanaya upadiyamane priti nayavan maiva sudeve namuchyate deha yogena tavat.
When the living entity is covered by the mood of ignorance, he does not understand the individual living being and the supreme living being, and his mind is subjugated to fruitive activity. Therefore, until one has love for Lord Vasudeva, who is none other than myself, he is certainly not delivered from having to accept a material body again and again.
So this verse talks about the supremacy of bhakti, right? So you notice over here that this is a shortcut verse, right? It takes one from the platform of ignorance all the way to the platform of perfection based on only one thing, that unless one has love for Lord Vasudeva, right? So that is bhakti. Earlier on, you were saying vikarma, sakarma, gyan, then perfection. Now he's saying vikarma to perfection. And the only thing that is needed is bhakti. And so gyan was previously glorified because it takes away avidya, right? So it sets you on the right path for future. So from avidya, now you are in the position of gyan, so you will not perform activities that are, or you would not like to perform activities that are going to give you another body. But gyan does not take away the propensity to perform action. Right, so same point made in Nectar Devotion, that the reason bhakti gives you Klesh and Subhada, Kleshangani and Subhada, is because it burns away even the roots of karmic activities. The Kuta Bij and Aprarabha, even it burns away. Gyan will not do that. So, driven by one's swabhav, one will still be inclined to perform sinful activities. So even though the person may know, right, when Arjuna asks Krishna, that why does a person knowing still performs sinful activities, right? And Krishna says it is lust only, and then he establishes that cycle. But where is that lust coming from? The lust is coming from the previous, it's the result of the previous activities that have been formed. So only bhakti has the ability to uproot these desires. So Prabhupada talks about the importance of a guru in this condition, right? He says that, of course, Brahmana Brahmite Kona Bhagyavanji Guru Krishna Prasad Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. That one gets the shelter of a guru, then one begins to develop love for Vasudeva Krishna. Okay, verse 7. Yada napashatya ayatha guneham swartha pramattha saha savipaschit gata smriti vindati tatra tapam asadaya maithunyam agaram agyaha.
Even though one may be very learned and wise, he is mad if he does not understand that the endeavor for such gratification is useless waste of time. Being forgetful of his own interests, he tried to be happy in the material world, centering his interests around his own, which is based on sexual intercourse and which bring him all kinds of material miseries. In this way, one is no better than a foolish animal.
So in 3 verses, Rishabdev now talks about cutting through the knots of illusion. So here he says that Vipaschit is a learned person. So even a Vipaschit should be considered as Pramata. The Pramata is basically mad. And Agya. And Agya is foolish if he does not see the futility of endeavors for sense gratification. So such a person, Gata Smriti, such a person will forget his own interest and Maithunyam Agaram. And he will essentially enjoy Agaram is essentially a home, a house around Maithunyam, around sex. So what is the point Rishabdev is making? That without the protection of bhakti, even a learned person is susceptible. So Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that that freedom from past karmic reactions, not just the prarabdha, but the ones that are embedded in your subtle body, it only occurs in the mature stage of jnana mixed with bhakti, not in the immature stage. So when even the wise man does not see the desire for sense object as useless, he suddenly loses his memory and experiences great pain after attaining the house made of sexual pleasure. So Krishna makes the point in 262, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsha Sangas Teshubhashate, that when contemplating the object of the senses, person develops attachment from them, lust develops, and from lust, anger develops. So one's intellectual advancement or jnana is itself not sufficient, because jnana may be able to help you discriminate what is right and what is wrong, but it may not be able to protect you from doing what is wrong. That is why Dhyayate Vishaya Pumsam Sangas Teshubhashate, right? So this is like compared to what is known as invisible theft. So invisible theft is that the stealing is going on, but nobody knows who is stealing, when the stealing is going on. So like if you have a reservoir of water, and then you see that it is gradually drying up. So you can see that water is going away. But how, when, why, that you don't know. Well, how, maybe because of the heat, but you don't really see anybody coming in, putting a bucket in the reservoir and taking away the water, right? It is happening invisible. So similarly, when one does not realize that sense gratification is useless, then he will eventually become mad. And as a result, he will experience extreme suffering in the house of lust, maithunyam agaram. Right? So a person may develop discrimination by jnana, but unless he is able to have that realization that this is actually useless, then even without him knowing, he will eventually become absorbed in that which he knows he should not do. And we see the example of Saurabh Rishi, right? He was such a great performer of austerities. For long time, he was sitting underwater performing austerities. So he clearly knew what was good for him. If he was able to get that level of control on his mind and senses, he clearly knew what was good and what was not. But then he could not, knowing also he could not control his urges. And we see in the case of sages like Vishwamitra, that if we know at a neophyte level, then he knows much better than us. But still, why? Because of this invisible theft. That even without them realizing it, the senses take them forcibly towards the object. Now, this is talking about the initial stages of Gyan. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that in the advanced stages, Gyan becomes infused with bhakti. And then the protection becomes stronger. And this he will expand on in subsequent verses. Okay, so the next verse is an important verse which has a fairly long purport, but it is related. So I think we'll do it. We may not have time for questions, but we had a discussion, so we can take any questions next time. So 558. Pumshastriya mituni bhavanetam tayor mitho hridaya granthim mahu ato graha kshetra sutapaviter janasya moho yamaham mameti.
The attraction between male and female is a basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which tie together the heart of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relative, and wealth. In this way, one increases life illusion and thinks in terms of I and mine.
So as I mentioned, this is an important verse because it talks about why is sexual attraction specially condemned. Because right from the beginning, Rishabdev has been singling this out, right? And one might say that there are so many other kind of material attachments. Why is Maithunyam being condemned? So here he explains that one identifies the actions of the senses with oneself. Then the illusions that are let me rephrase it. the reason that the sexual attachment between the man and the woman is condemned, because it does not end over there. It is the beginning of many other attachments. So when a man associates with a woman, then there is children. So now the attraction becomes focused to the children, then the grandchildren. To keep the children, one needs a house. Then the attraction is to the house. For the pleasure of the wife, the husband needs a status, wealth. So because this is the fountainhead of so many other attractions, Rishabdev is specially condemning them. That is one reason. The second reason is an interesting reason. He says that the attraction that is between a man and a woman is like two knots that are tied to one another. So the man thinks that this is my wife, right? So one knot is established over there. The woman thinks this is my husband. So the second knot is tied. So even if one knot is slackened, the other will still hold. Even if the man may desire to lead a renounced life, the wife will not give up her affinity for the husband. And out of this dual knots, many other dual knots are created between the father and the son. The father may want to renounce the child will be attracted to the father, or vice versa. So, one may question. So here it is said, Kshetra Sutta Apta. Right. So, how can attraction to your child be considered as maithunya? Right. So, this is because Janasya moho yam aham mameti. That the possessiveness between the man and the woman results in aham mameti, me and mine, and that results in all the other dual knots that are created. So because their cause is maithunya, they are also considered to be on the same platform. Now, in order to contrast this, you consider a person in the renounced order of life who may have some attachments. The person may be attached to his coping, or he may be attached to his cell phone, or he may be attached to wealth. But this is not that strong because it is only a single knot. Because the person may be attached to the cell phone, but the cell phone is not attached to the person. So if the person gives up the cell phone is not going to come after the person wanting to re-establish the relationship. The person may give up his wealth and the wealth is gone. So these attachments that have material items as their object, they are relatively easy to give up if a person is well situated, because there is only a single knot, which is in the control of the person. But attachments that come from maithunya, they are very difficult to give up because of this dual knot. Srila Prabhupada says that sex serves as a natural attraction between man and woman, and when they are married, the relationship becomes more involved. The woman thinks this man is my husband, and the man thinks the woman is my wife. This is called Hridaya Granthi, the hard knot in the heart. Now, hearing this, one may debate that the Lord is asking us, He's condemning this maithunya in so many ways, but exalted personalities are always accompanied by consorts. Lord Shiva is with Parvati, Brahma is with Saraswati, Lord Vishnu is with Lakshmi Devi. So Srila Prabhupada says one should not think like that, because the activities of great personalities are not meant to be emulated. Why? Because one may get misled by the external manifestation and not understand the internal consciousness. Prabhupada quotes the Satya Samhita saying that sometimes it is found among exalted personalities like Brahma that the wife and the son are not a cause of bondage. On the contrary, the wife actually helps for the spiritual life and liberation. Nonetheless, most persons are bound by the knots of marital relationship, and consequently they forget their relationship with Krishna. So what does it imply? That Rishabdev is not condemning family life, but is condemning the attachment to family. That it is this attachment that is the cause of bondage. So Lord Brahma, in his prayers in 10:14, he says that those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind offer all respects to descriptions of your personality and activities, dedicating their lives on these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship. Otherwise, you are unconquerable. So what is Brahma is saying? That while remaining situated in their established social positions, right? He's not asking, not recommending that they give up their social position. While they are in their social position, they, with proper knowledge, they glorify the Lord. In the 7th canto, 14th chapter, this is instructions by Narad Muni to Yudhishthir. Narad Muni talks about the ideal family life. And he says that although a grahastha should externally be very active in earning his livelihood, internally he should be a fully self-realized person without attachment for material gains. Right? So this is an important verse and an important point that is made for practicing devotees. So my apologies for going over time. We'll end over here, and if there's any discussion, we can do it on Wednesday. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnavind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.